Speaker, and I'm honored to rise tonight in the House at adjournment proceedings to pursue a question I asked on a memorable date. It was November the 17th. It was a day in which we were going to vote later in the day on the budget itself. And my question pertained to the budget. My question was to the Prime Minister. And so on that instance, I asked the Prime Minister if he would agree that there was a deficiency in the budget in that our legally binding Paris Agreement commitments weren't mentioned, and that we had not yet seen what was described as a nature strategy, Canada's commitments under COP15 of the Biodiversity Convention, otherwise known as the Kunming-Montreal Agreement. It was a very strong answer, but there have been some inconsistencies, and that the Prime Minister did respond, and this is important to repeat again for purposes of Hansard, quoting the Prime Minister, I will confirm to the House that we will respect our Paris commitments for climate change. We are determined to achieve them. I can confirm with the House that, consistent with the Kunming-Montreal commitments, the nature strategy will be released in the coming weeks. The Prime Minister also mentioned that it was important that we be on a path for real results for climate, for nature, and for reconciliation. So my question at this hour is, now that we're looking at the answer that was received, and since then the changes that have been made in government planning, we are still, according to all reports, not on track to meet our Paris Agreement targets. We are, you can measure things in weeks, but certainly coming weeks suggested that we'd see the nature strategy relatively quickly. This was November 17th, so we're now almost 4 months later and haven't yet seen the nature strategy. I certainly hope that someone representing the Prime Minister here this evening can update the House on where we are on getting the nature strategy brought forward. It's critical, if we're going to meet the commitments that are due by 2030, that, and now it being 2026, that we see action, that we see commitments, and that we see funding. It's also important to mention, Mr. Speaker, and I look for any kind of an update on climate commitments, that the budget that was tabled that day and that we voted on shortly after this exchange and question period included at page 348 a clear commitment that what are called enhanced oil recovery measures will not qualify for investment tax credits. But it was some days later, not that long thereafter, that a commitment was made to the Government of Alberta in an MOU that such investments to increase oil production would in fact qualify for further subsidies to encourage further oil production, contrary to the exact wording of what was in the budget that we voted on that day, that said eligible uses include, and then they list some, but not enhanced oil recovery. So that left us with, in this place and across Canada, I might add, some significant questions about where we are as a nation. What can we make of the commitment of November 17th that we will act to avoid exceeding 2 degrees Celsius global average temperature increase, that we will take steps to ensure the nature strategy and our commitments globally are observed. I note at this hour, Mr. Speaker, that as my time is running out on putting forward my argument in this late show proceeding, time is also running out for the climate. We're dealing with atmospheric changes that are irreversible and can be self-accelerating without quick action. I look forward to this debate. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary, the Minister of Environment and Climate Change.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and it's always a pleasure to rise and engage with my dear colleague from Saanich Gulf Islands. Mr. Speaker, this government does and will always take climate change commitments very seriously. In 2015, Canada, alongside 194 other countries, adopted the Paris Agreement under the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. The agreement sets a global goal to limit warming, strengthen resilience, and align financial flows with low emissions and climate resilient development. Also, almost every country in the world, including Canada, has committed to reducing greenhouse gas emissions and preparing for the impacts that climate change present. Our government recognizes that climate action is both a moral responsibility and an economic necessity. Budget 2025 sets Canada on a path to meet our legally binding commitments while building a strong, resilient economy. This includes cutting greenhouse gas emissions and addressing the impacts of climate change. Our climate competitiveness strategy in Budget 2025 drives these outcomes while building a resilient economy. As the Prime Minister has stated, this budget puts us on a path for real results for climate, for nature, and for reconciliation with Indigenous people. We respect our Paris commitments, and we are determined to achieve them. Industrial carbon pricing is central to Canada's climate strategy. It is designed not only to reduce emissions, but also to unlock investment in clean technologies, support Canadian industries, and maintain our competitiveness in global markets. By putting a price on pollution for large industrial polluters, we drive decarbonization, support innovation, and create good jobs while keeping energy and goods affordable. Strong industrial carbon markets also help Canada maintain trade relationships with partners like Europe and the UK, ensuring our exports meet the growing global demand for low carbon products. We're also investing in adaptation. The National Adaptation Strategy, supported by the Government of Canada Adaptation Action Plan, lays out more than 70 actions to protect communities, improve health outcomes, safeguard nature, and support a resilient economy. Since 2015, Canada has invested over $6.6 billion in adaptation, including new funding in Budget 2025 for community infrastructure and youth-focused initiatives. The Government of Canada has a fundamental commitment to reconciliation and respects Indigenous peoples as equal partners in the country we are building together. If I didn't believe that, I would not be standing on this side of the House, Mr. Speaker. The government supports the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples and invests in Indigenous-led climate solutions. Since 2020, over $2 billion has been committed to Indigenous climate action, including funds for clean energy, energy efficiency, and resiliency. Indigenous knowledge and leadership are critical to achieving meaningful, long-term, and long-lasting change. Mr. Speaker, the Government of Canada is fully committed to delivering on its climate obligations, supporting adaptation, advancing nature protection, and working with Indigenous peoples across this country to ensure a sustainable, resilient, and prosperous Canada for all. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Saanich Gulf Islands.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thanks to my honourable colleague, the Parliamentary Secretary. Surely he's aware that recent studies, including by the government's appointed experts in the Canadian Climate Institute, have shown that Canada is not on target to meet any, and on track to meet any of our targets. That includes Canada is not on track to meet the climate targets put in place by former Prime Minister Stephen Harper. Canada is nowhere near the targets that we are supposed to be meeting under former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, nor are we on track because we have, as the Climate Institute report pointed out, we have weakened more actions than we have strengthened. It goes as a foregone conclusion that without much more robust actions to reduce emissions, we're going to be risking hitting tipping points in the atmosphere that put us on a path to unstoppable, self-accelerating climate change that threatens future generations and human civilization itself.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I just want to address that Canada's climate strategy is about more than meeting commitments. It's about building a safer, stronger, and more prosperous country. By putting a price on pollution, investing in clean energy, and supporting Indigenous-led solutions, we are reducing emissions while creating jobs and economic opportunity. Our National Adaptation Strategy and Action Plan help communities prepare for climate risks, protect biodiversity, and build resilience. Canada remains fully engaged internationally, reporting under the Paris Agreement and working with partners to ensure our climate actions are effective. We are committed to measurable results for climate, measurable results for nature, and reconciliation. That's not only for today, Mr. Speaker, but that is for many, many generations to come.